Hello, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and welcome to Stretching Children's Thinking Quality of Feedback webinar. On behalf of Early Learning Coalition and Broad Educators Learning Academy, thank you to everybody who participated in our previously presented webinars, and just to invite you, check out all the recordings from previous webinars on our website. So let's begin. We're going to start from introducing ourselves. And first will go my wonderful co-presenter, co-worker, Ms. Stephanie. Hi, Steph. Good evening.
Good evening, Agnes, and hello, everyone who has joined our webinar this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time on this Thursday evening. A little bit about myself is I've been with the ELC for a little over 3 years now, and I have worked in Broward County with different organizations helping the early childhood education population for around 5 years now. And a little bit about myself is I started as a classroom teacher, of course, and then I got lots of different opportunities to lead initiatives and be a coach and just wear a variety of different roles. And it's been a really rewarding experience. And I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, so we'll be referring to her very often today, I bet. And then also a little trivia bit. Next Thursday, 1 week from today, I'm getting married, which I planned in 4 weeks. So wish me luck.
Yay. Okay, congratulations, Stephanie. We wish you the best, and I can't wait to see the pictures, and I'm so excited for you. So good evening, everybody. So my name is Agnieszka Bodie. I am also a quality and education coaching specialist here for ELC of Broward, serving our providers, children, families, and working with you, teachers. I was born in a small city in Poland, in Europe, and I've been here for the last 20 years. It's just my 20th anniversary coming here to America, so it's been a long time. I am also class certified observer, MMCI trainer, infant toddlers pre-K, TSG trainer. I have over 20 plus years experience in early childhood education, and I also started as a classroom teacher, and there I was a little bit of a preschool director. Then I was working for Family Central as a coach, and now here in ELC with Stephanie. So thank you so much again, and let's start from our ELC of Broward proprietary interest policy, that there is a policy of the Early Learning Coalition that if the instructors have any vested interest in any product, instrument, device, service, or materials that might be used in the learning event such as this, they must disclose this interest to the learners. We do not have any vested proprietary interest in any of the content, materials, or resources presented tonight. So if there is a breach of this policy, please contact us on elctraining@elcbroward.org. Okay. So let's go over a couple of things. So remember, all ELC Broward trainings are for in-service hours only. All participants must complete both the post-test and training evaluation survey to receive a certificate of participation in the Learning Management System, LMS. And participants who arrive more than 15 minutes after the training has started will unfortunately not receive a certificate of participation within in-service hours. Participants who leave before the training has ended will not receive a certificate of participation within service hours as well. So please be prepared to arrive on time and stay until the end of the training. In order to be marked as attendant, you must log into the computer using your email address or download the GoToWebinar application on your smart device. So again, upon completion of training, a post-test of 5 questions and training evaluation survey of 9 questions will launch in your LMS account, but will give us a little bit after the training because Stephanie will have to mark you as attended. So then you go into the system will generate the email with those documentation that you have to fill up. So give us at least 15 to 20 minutes. And then if you want to access your LMS account, you can simply scan the QR code here with your camera on your phone, and it will take you straight to your account. So that's all about the attendance credit post evaluation and survey. So let's go a little bit of webinar housekeeping. As you can see, you have go to webinar control panel with multiple functionalities. So if you click on the orange rectangle with white arrow, you can either open or close the control panel. We have handouts for you. So if you click on the handouts triangle, the list of handouts will drop down, and you can click on each individual handout, and then PDF file will open up, and you can download those handouts to your device. And also, we're going to have interactions tonight. We're going to talk to you. Would like to chat with us. So click on the question triangle, and you can type your answers or questions or any comments you might have throughout this presentation. So let's move on. What are we going to have today for you? So next we're going to go over training outcomes. Then we're going to go over strategies for providing effective feedback that helps teachers create learning opportunities and provide meaningful feedback to children throughout the day using scaffolding, feedback loops, prompting, thought processes, and providing information, encouragement, and affirmation to children. We're going to give you some strategies for your classrooms, and also we're going to have some polls to check your knowledge and show you a couple of video clips and discuss them. So let's go over our training outcomes for tonight. So we're going to learn how to recognize, to pay attention to children's level of understanding and build on it by offering hints and assistance, which is scaffolding. Ask follow-up questions, maintain back and forth exchanges to help children reach a deeper understanding of content. Feedback loops, provide specific information about why child's response is correct or incorrect, prompted through thought processes, and expand on children's responses, actions, to provide additional information or clarification, which is provided information, and recognize children for their efforts, encouraging them to persist in their thinking or participation, which is encouragement and affirmation. So those are all the 5 different strategies that we can provide quality of feedback to children, and that's what we're going to learn tonight. So when we are coming to training like this, for example, tonight, sometimes we ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Why I'm here tonight, right? What is it? What's in it for me? What's there in for me in this training? So by being here today, you're going to learn a couple of things. Like, for example, you can make the most of your time with children at every time of the day by intentionally looking for every occasion to provide meaningful feedback to children. Feedback is very important. And then you create more learning opportunities. You respond to what you see children say and do, and give specific praise for their efforts. So what's in it for the children? With this effective feedback you give to the children, children can explain why they thought or did something as they persist in tasks or challenges throughout the day they otherwise could not complete, while increasing their understanding. And that brings me to the quote from Bill Gates, who said that we all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve. So good feedback is the key to improvement. So next, let's chat and let's talk about why is quality of feedback so challenging. Please chat with us. Click on the question triangle and talk to us. Why is quality of feedback so challenging for you? What is that you struggle with when you're giving feedback to your children in your own classroom? What is that some areas? For example, I find it difficult to understand why I can't just say good job to children, that this is not enough. What do you guys think?
I know with my daughter, especially because, I try to be classy with my daughter who is in the pre-K age. I always kind of struggle with those feedback loops, staying persistent and getting her to stay with me on the conversation. I find that to be a little bit challenging because it's sometimes hard to think of those good follow-up questions that will make her still stay engaged.
Yeah. Well, I will have some answers, thinking quickly to respond with open-ended question. Oh yes, that's one of the hardest things too, right? We often don't remember to ask those open-ended questions to get those information out of the children, to ask them to explain their thinking, right? They think this way, right? So that's very important. Very nice. Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? What else do you guys feel like is very difficult for you giving feedback? What is that there is you forget about something, or maybe you find difficult to remember when you interacting with children in different learning centers? Maybe one time of the day you know what to do, but then other times you forget. Because
I
sometimes,
definitely have to say also that good job is really hard to get out of your everyday everyday language, even after so many years in the field. Sometimes I catch myself or my partner saying good job to our daughter, and then we have to remind ourselves to ask good job doing what. So I find that
yes,
to be challenging.
yes, definitely. I even catch myself when I work with teachers in the classroom, and I like what they did with children. I say to her, "Wow, good job, Miss Evelyn," or so, and then I catch myself, "Wow, I'm supposed to say something else, right? Like explain what I actually liked what she did with the children, right? Children creative in their own ways. It does not need to be perfect. That's right. I am to give a positive feedback without influencing the work, so I compliment frequently. Very good. That's affirmation, right? How to help kids with challenge behavior. So we're giving a specific feedback to children with challenge behavior. So that's difficulties. Yeah, that could be difficult. How to help kids with challenge behavior. What kind of feedback we should give them, right, to improve their behaviors. Okay, well, thank you so much for all these wonderful comments. So let's go move on and remind ourselves a little bit about class. So what is class? Class is Classroom Assessment Scoring System, right? This is an acronym to the class tool and is an observation tool used to measure the effectiveness of classroom interactions between teachers and children to children. So the class tool for pre-K describes three broad domains of effective teacher-child interaction. It's emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. So today we're going to focus on instructional support, but specifically on quality of feedback. So within each of the three domains, there are multiple dimensions that each focus on a different aspect of teacher-child interactions, and each of those dimensions include a set of indicators or signs of effective classroom interactions and behavior markers or observable behaviors that support each indicator. Our focus is on the dimension quality of feedback, like I mentioned before, and this is how teacher extends students' learning through the responses to students' ideas, comments, and work. So interactions between teacher and adults are the key for instructional support, and this domain does not focus on the content of curriculum or learning activities, but rather on the ways in which teachers implement whichever curriculum they are using to effectively support cognitive and language development, right? So let's move on and go over those 5 different indicators of quality of feedback that we're going to focus tonight. So this slide gives you a visual presentation of what quality feedback is. So when we look at it on this chart, we can see it's been divided into 5 parts known as indicators. And first, to our left-hand side, we see scaffolding, which consists of the assistant and hints we give to students. We have feedback loops, which is simply those constant back and forth exchanges between the student and an adult. We have prompting thought processes. So these are those higher level thinking questions that encourage students to really think about their responses and those why and how questions. Then we have providing information. So it's how we clarify and further explain, and encouragement and affirmation. So the particular praise, that good jobs, right? Follow up with some more detailed explanation, right? The recognition we give to students to increase their involvement. So let's think about what is quality of feedback. Let's just go over that. So what is it? It's responding to what the children say and do in ways that deepen their understanding or encourage them to persist, continue back and forth exchanges until children successfully complete a task or reach a deeper level of understanding. Interactions described as a learning conversations between you and the children and meant to create learning opportunities and provide meaning feedback. Actually, that's supposed to be meaningful feedback. Apologize for that. So why is quality of feedback so important? So effective feedback deepens children's understanding and helps them persist in tasks they otherwise couldn't complete. So by intentionally looking for every occasion to provide meaningful feedback to children, you as a teacher create many more learning opportunities throughout the day, makes children explain their thinking, increases child involvement as a positive and encouraging environment. Its form and increases constant and meaningful dialogue. So let's move on. And what does that look like in the classroom? So for example, when the teacher gives a quality of feedback, teachers constantly respond to children's efforts and work in ways that expand their knowledge or help them accomplish a task, right? Throughout the activities throughout the day. Teachers provide physical assistance or hints, some clues to help children engage in play or learning activities, perform at the higher level, and sustain their attention. So teachers provide effective, specific feedback that allows children to understand the process of learning. So next, we're going to look at it, quality of feedback scenario here. And then further, we're going to break this quality of feedback scenario in let's say effective feedback and ineffective feedback. But first, let's read this first scenario and see how that quality of feedback in the classroom should look like. So during calendar time, Alex incorrectly said there have been more sunny days than cloudy days this month. You say, let's look at the chart and count the number of cloudy days. You and Mario begin to count together. He forgets the number that comes after 8, so you offer him a hint, a little clue. Mario exclaims, 9. Then you say, let's count the number of sunny days. And Mario correctly counts 5 sunny days. You ask which number is bigger. When he replies 9, you respond, good work. You compared 5 and 9 and noticed that 9 was a higher number. So as we could see, we have a lot of indicators of quality of feedback here. So now I'm going to move to next slide, and we're going to have that scenario, but in form of ineffective feedback. So I'm going to read this, and I would like you to chat with me in the question box and tell me, why do you think this is an example of ineffective feedback? Okay, so the teacher asked the children to look at the weather chart and tell her whether they have had more sunny days or more cloudy days. Alex says cloudy. The teacher says no, and then asks if anyone else knows the answer. What do you guys think? Why this is an example of ineffective feedback? What did the teacher do or didn't do? Why this is an example of ineffective feedback? Was the teacher encouraging child to try again? It does not offer a chance for the child to try again. Bingo, exactly. Thank you, Julieta. Get the reward feeling. Yes, very nice. Thank you, Julieta. That's a very great observation. We have more. They need a reason why it's incorrect. She should encourage him to try again. Exactly. She should tell him why it's incorrect and maybe give him a little hint or a clue, right? She didn't give Alex a chance because the teacher can't say no. Exactly. Avoid the word no. No, she did not encourage the student to try it again. This answer does not give the child the opportunity to think and come up with the answer. Yes, she did not help them. Exactly. So this is example of ineffective feedback because teacher didn't do anything to encourage child to help him uh, uh, come up with the answer, with the conclusion, or point him out in the right directions, right? Just telling the child no may deter the child from answering anything else. Yeah, discouraging child, right? Is not open and does not give the opportunity to correct and try again. Yes, exactly. Bravo. I love all these comments. So now let's play further and let's show next slide with example of effective feedback. And I want you guys to chat with me in the question box. Why do you think this example is an example of effective feedback? So I'll go and I'll read it now. When Alex says there have been more cloudy days, his teacher says, let's look at the chart and count the number of cloudy days. The teacher and Alex come together. Then the teacher say, let's count the number of sunny days. When they are done, the teacher asks Alex to tell her which number is bigger. Alex compares the numbers and realizes that they have more sunny days. So why this example is more effective feedback? What the teacher do here in this scenario? How is the teacher behavior, her actions impact the child, and how the child respond to her? When Alex said there have been more cloudy days, what the teacher say? She say, let's look at the chart together, right? Let's come together. The teacher was inviting the student to participate. Yes, Liliana, thank you. It builds his confidence in himself. Very nice, Karen. She's given him multiple opportunities. Yes. Tiffany, thank you. She joined him with him, right, in the task. She gave him some clues, right? She supported him, offered her clues. Thank you, Kathy, Madeline, Miss Rose. She encouraged him to solve the problem by himself. They both counted together. Yes, thank you, Miss Shelley. Wonderful, wonderful. More opportunities, Rosaria. Miss Kelly, appropriate, being helpful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for participating. Awesome. So next, let's talk about some of the strategies that we can do in the classroom to improve our quality of feedback. And then further, we're going to talk about it with more details. So what do we want to do? What can we do to improve the quality of feedback we provide to our children in the classroom? So first, focus on the process of learning. So when children give correct answers, create learning moments by asking follow-up questions. For example, those how, why questions, right? How did you know that? So then we really want to engage in feedback loops. So what are the feedback loops? So after children respond, we ask a series of follow-up questions to gain a deeper understanding from children. So this will help you to know if children really understand what you are trying to teach them, right? So then we want to scaffold children's learning. So provide children with hints, those little clues, when they have difficulties understanding a concept or answering a question, just to help them get to the answer. For example, asking open-ended questions related to the topic, simplifying the question just to support the child in responding, right? And then we want to give that specific feedback. So there are many opportunities throughout the day to give children's feedback. For example, when the children are working independently, right? So listen and respond to what children have to say during group lessons as well as in individual interactions with children, and then provide that specific information. So we want to give them detailed information, right? So give children specific information about why their answers are correct or incorrect. so they know. And this will provide children with more information and just help the children who may not know the correct answer. So that's very important. And then encourage persistence, right? So praise children's effort and encourage them to persist in thinking about things or completing tasks. For example, saying, you are working hard as the team on building that bridge together. Let me know if you need help. So next, we're going to go over with more details all the quality of feedback indicators, which is 5 of them, to help you improve in overall given feedback for your children in your classroom. So the first indicator is scaffolding, right? Scaffolding is our first indicator in the quality of feedback. So it happens when a teacher acknowledges when a child is starting and provides the appropriate level of support in order for the child to succeed or complete a task. So knowing your students and forming a relationship with them will actually help you to better understand their needs and what they understand, how they learn, right? The whole process. So scaffolding occurs when a teacher given children hints, those little clues, or other help, assistance when they have trouble completing a task or understanding a concept. So for example, if a child's having a hard time stringing beads and the teacher holds the string or hands beads to him, then she's scaffolding his completion of the task, right? She's giving that assistant to him. It's not only offering support to help a child complete a task, it could also be helping children problem solve when they both want to play with the same toy, right? At the same time. So the teacher could scaffold by saying, would a timer help? Is there a way one of you can have it first and then the other can have next? So that's how we can use scaffolding. So next, let's move on to the next slide and how does the scaffolding look like, right, in the classroom. So scaffolding again occurs when the teacher giving children those hints and help, right, assistant when they have trouble completing those tasks or understanding, right? So if a child having a hard time to tie the shoes, an adult can explain the steps and model how to do so. That adult can then have the child repeat the step back, right? The teacher may also offer support to help child complete a task like we see in the image of that child completing a puzzle. So the teacher might give a hint or even offer hand physical support to assist the child, right? Teacher provide appropriate level of support for children to succeed at complete a task by giving constantly those little hints and clues and providing assistance. So next, let's watch a short video clip about scaffolding children's learning. And when we come back after this video, I would like you guys to chat with me. If you could point some of the observation you made throughout this video, what kind of evidence of quality of feedback you observe in that video? What are some of those scaffolding strategies you notice in this video? And then we can chat about them and just have a conversation what kind of strategies you could use in your own classroom, right? So I'm going to play the video and we'll see you back here soon. Okay, so as you could see, there were 3 different strategies for effective scaffolding of children's learning. So, what are some of the observation? What are those 3 strategies that you observe in this video? What they were talking about? What kind of strategies? What were the teacher doing to scaffold the children's learning? It, some of you didn't hear the video.
No, but I recommend that they take a picture of the slide right now so they can go back and view that video because it is very great a resource for scaffolding.
Yes, that's a great idea. Take a screenshot with the link, and you can rewatch it on your own convenience later. So for those, I'm sorry, who didn't see it, but I see some given options for response. Yes, that's one of the strategies, right? Teachers can give children choices, like for example, 3 possible answers to the question to make them think, right? Very nice. Thank you, Miss Karen. Give 2 to 3 options. Thank you, Miss Cynthia. The teacher given hints. Exactly, right? The teachers was given those clues to children. That's the second strategy, right? To use hints when working on an airplane puzzle. Thank you, Miss Madeline and Miss Rose. All right. And what was the third strategy? Another way to scaffold children's learning. Remember when we asked the teacher to work with them? Yes, give children hints and resources. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Besaida and Miss Nichelia, sorry. Yes, give those, provide those additional resources, right? Like books, those visual reminders, and variety of materials. Remember, we always have to give children hands-on variety of modalities and resources so they can have a choice, right? So yes, that's all the 3 strategies that were mentioned in this video. So now let's practice identifying those behavior markers, hints, and assistants in the classroom scenario. So I'm going to explain what we're going to do now. So can you guys identify those behavioral markers that we just talked about, hints and assistants, right? Demonstrated in this example. So I'm going to read it and see, I give you some hints. See what I'm doing here? I'm giving you hints, I'm giving you clues where those behavior markers should be, right? So let's see if you can identify what is hint or assistant after these first 2 sentences. So chat with me in the question box, okay? So I'm going to read it now. So while playing a board game, Mila struggles to name the animal on her game card. Miss Jones says it flies and makes a hooting sound. Which behavior marker is that? Is it a hint or is it assistant? Right, flies and hoots. The hooting sound and it flies. So what is that? It's a hint, right? Yay. Okay, hint, hint, hint. Everybody say hint. So I'm not gonna read your names. Great job, guys. So when Mila whispers owl to Miss Jones says, that's right. Let's say it together. What is that? Which behavior marker is that? Hint or assistant? Assistant, right? Thank you, Kelly. Because Miss Jones says, let's do it together, right? So she's giving her assistant. Then Mila and Miss Jones tell the group, it's an owl. Bravo. Thank you guys for participating. So next, let's see this little scenario here. And for improving quality of feedback for scaffolding. In this little scenario, a child is playing with blocks and is frustrated that the tower keeps falling. So how can we scaffold that and help child with this little task of building that tower? So first, we want to ask those prompting questions, right? What do you think would happen if we didn't build the tower quite so tall? Maybe it's too tall, right? Then we could give a range of possible answers, right? So do you think we need a bigger blocks at the bottom, or should we make 2 smaller towers? So we could give possible answers, right? Then we could make a suggestion. Your block tower keeps falling down. Do you want to try putting all the bigger blocks at the bottom? And then we could use a demonstration. So as a teacher, you can make your own block tower to demonstrate how the blocks works best, because sometimes we have to show children how to use toys, right? And then, so we can model, right? And then we provide physical support, so the teacher can help support the blocks at the bottom or catch the blocks tower so the child can stabilize it, right? So that's the physical assistant. So guess what? It's the time for our first poll. So let's see if you guys caught it. Our first learning outcomes. So our first poll would be: scaffolding occurs when a teacher provides hints and assistance. True or false? All right, and then cast your vote. Scaffolding occurs when a teacher provides hints and assistance. What do you think? True or false? All right, we have 50% voted. Beautiful. Keep voting. I know you know this. Almost 70%. We just talked about it. I'm sure that everybody knows the answer. Scaffolding occurs when a teacher provides hints and assistance. All right, we have 76. Couple of more, 78. Couple of more. All right, so I'm going to close the poll and share the results. Wow, look at you guys. 78% of you voted and 100% of you said it's true. Bravo. So you got the first learning outcome. Recognize how to pay attention to children's level of understanding and build on it by offering hints and assistance, which is scaffolding. Beautiful. Bravo. Thank you so much. So let's move on to our second indicator for quality of feedback, which is feedback loops. So when we talk about feedback loops, we are talking about the back and forth exchanges where the teacher persists in sustaining the discussion through a follow-up question. So to help you understand this indicator better, think of it as a tennis match. It is that consistent back and forth, right? Rather than dropping the ball after a child returns the ball to you, an effective teacher continues to engage the child in the exchange by sending the ball back into the child's court. So it's like the tennis match, back and forth. The child's coming back to us and we throwing the ball back to the child, right? So the teacher makes a statement so the child can respond, and then the teacher responds again, and so forth. So the teacher persists in sustaining the discussion through follow-up questions, and it has the goal of expanding the child's learning and their thinking, right? So next, let's look at that, how that looks like. What does it look like when responding to children thinking, right? So that feedback loop. So when responding to children's thinking, think feedback loops and ask yourself, does that promote open-ended questioning? Is there a why or how to that answer? How do you know that? Why do you think? Are we asking those questions to children? Is it something that can be explained? Does the feedback stretch children's thinking and push their learning? We need to ask those higher level thinking questions. And if the answer is no, then it's really rote, right? Those good job, terrific, it's not enough. So ask yourself those questions. And then a feedback loop occurs in response to something a child says or does. So it has the goal of expanding the child's learning and thinking rather than the goal of getting a child to talk, which is falls under completely different a domain, which is language modeling dimension, right? So when we define feedback loops, we think about those back and forth exchanges between a teacher and a child that increases a child's understanding of topic or the performances, right? So in a classroom with strong feedback loops, teacher would engage in extend back and forth exchanges with children to help them understand ideas or get the correct answer. And she would persist in trying to get children to understand rather than stopping after one or two comments, right? And then she might ask many follow-up questions to facilitate a higher level of understanding or performance. And in order for feedback loop to occur, the exchange needs to focus on helping the child either gain a greater understanding of something or perform a skill correctly. So let's see an example of effective feedback loop in this little scenario. And I'm going to take turns with Stephanie, and we're going to play roles in this little example of feedback loop. So we can see the example of feedback loop in this conversation with the child. So it's a cold and rainy day. A child asks his teacher why they are not going outside to play. The following exchange takes place.
Why do we have to stay inside?
What do you think?
I don't know.
Look out the window and tell me what you see.
Rain?
What would happen if we went outside?
We'd get wet.
And how would that make us feel?
Yucky.
That's right. We would feel yucky because our clothes would get wet from the rain. That is why we are inside instead. So as you can see, you notice that during this conversation, many times the student would only respond with like one word answer, right? So the teacher needed to really drive this conversation with the child, right? And continue asking questions to receive feedback from the student, to get that information out of the child, right? To encourage him to give her more information. So she kept asking those questions. And remember, some students will need us to give them that extra push in order to keep that consistent dialogue. So we teachers have to come up with questions. So next, we're going to play again with identifying the behavioral markers, which are follow-up questions, persistent by teacher, and back and forth exchanges. So this time we have 3 different behavioral markers, and you see here in that scenario, we have a couple of question marks. So I need you to chat with me in the question box and identify those behavioral markers. What do you think? Where the follow-up question is, persistent by teacher or back and forth exchanges. So Jalen talks to her teacher about the picture she's drawing. Jalen, look, that boy fell off the slide. Miss Lee, what happened? So what do you guys notice here? What behavior marker is right here? Which one is here? What the teacher asked? What happened? She asked. Follow-up question. Thank you, Kelly and Kathy. Okay, so let's move on. Jalen, he hit his head. And Miss Lee, ouch, is he okay? Which behavioral marker is here? Excuse me. What happened, right? So what's that? Another follow-up question, right? All right, so Jalen, no, he has to go to the doctor. Miss Lee, oh no, will the doctor be able to help him? What behavior marker is here? It's another. And yeah, we can say it's back and forth because she have already that conversation. Yes, Rose. Open and the question, which is that follow-up question again, right? Excellent. So Jalen, yes, but he'll need stitches. Miss Lee, will that hurt? another back and forth, right? Open-ended question, which is the follow-up question. Exactly. Jalen, only for a little bit, and then he'll be okay. Miss Lee, I wonder what he'll look like with all those stitches. Will you draw that too? Follow-up questions, back and forth exchange, right? Beautiful. And then what else? What is the middle one? Persistent by teacher, right? Also because she doesn't stop. She doesn't give up. Did you guys notice that? So we also see the evidence of the behavior markers, which is the persistence by the teacher, because she keep asking all these questions, right? Yes, persistent, Miss Rosaria. Miss Rosaria. And then Jalen said, yes. So again, back and forth exchange. Yes? Wonderful. So how can we improve asking those questions? What do we have to remember when we want to have those meaningful back and forth exchanges with our children in those classrooms? So Stephanie, can you please give us some of the strategies for extending those conversations with those open-ended questions, please?
Absolutely. So we are going to take a deeper look at some intentional questioning and see how we can really open up our exchanges with our students and get more out of their responses through our intentional questioning. So first, I want to show you this great image here, which is a wonderful pyramid, upside down pyramid hierarchy of open-ended versus closed-ended questions. I would take a photo of this if I was a teacher, because I would recreate that triangle and post it on my wall to remind me. Because you can see here, there's a level of deepness and depth that you get depending on which question you ask. So most importantly, we want to see those why and how questions, such as, why are you moving so quickly around the room? Why did you think the car rolled so fast? So really getting the children to explain more about what they're thinking. And then how. So how can we share these markers? Really giving that opportunity for the children to work at explaining how they could share the markers and problem solve together. And then we have our when, where, and who, which are not bad questions to ask, but they can get a little close-ended, such as, when are you going to the park? Where did you find that rock? And who is in the block area? So you'd want to keep adding to those questions to continue that feedback loop. You would need to ask a lot of those when, where, and who questions to continue that. And then at the very end of the pyramid, we have that is. Is that a tower you just built? And that's very clearly can be quickly turned into a closed-ended question. So that is why it's at the bottom of the pyramid. So let's talk about some strategies for extending the conversations with questions for our feedback loop. So you want to really ask the children about what they are doing. So you can say things such as, what are you working on today? Or what are your plans for these materials? So really letting the child explain what they are going to do. And then we also continue on that path of explanation and pull even more information by asking why and how questions again, such as, why do you think that happened? Or how did you do that? Or how can I help you solve this problem? So just remembering where and when to incorporate that why and how as much as possible. And then we want to ask those children to connect learning to their own lives. So important, but very easy to do. Just you have to be mindful and intentional with these questions, such as, what does this remind you of? Which is nice and open-ended and can really bring it to their own lives. Or we also have a question such as, these blocks are blue. What blue objects do you have in your home? And then this one, of course, because a lot of children have pets, is, the boy in the store loved his pet. The boy in the story loved his pet hamster. Do you have any pets? Tell me about them. And that tell me about them is that invitation for that conversation and that that opportunity to have that feedback loop with these intentional questions and follow-up questions. So let's see a thin conversation or a less impactful conversation, and we're going to watch it transform into a rich, thick conversation. So let's read the first conversation together. So we have our first conversation, which is on the left-hand side, right above that little chicken there, a little chick. So the adult says, do you want to play with the boat? And the child says, yes. What color is it? Blue. Who will ride in the boat? The man. So that was our thin conversation. So now let's look at that conversation with a little more intention and peppering in some of these important W questions. Which toy would you like to play with the most? The boat. Oh, the boat is your favorite. What will you do with the boat? The man is going to ride on it. Where is the man traveling? Into the bubbles. The bubbles are dense. Watch out. Help, the man is falling out. Oh no, who will rescue the man? I'll get the whale. The whale is a hero. So you see, we're using those follow-up questions to maintain that back and forth exchange to help the children reach a deeper understanding of their content or enhance the scenario that they are engaged with at the time. So we're going to wrap up our feedback loops with a poll just to recap and see if we have achieved our second learning outcome. So what do you think? Feedback loops in the classroom happen when? Is it A, teachers engage in back and forth exchanges with children, teachers show persistence and encouraging children's understanding, and teachers ask follow-up questions? Or do you believe all of these are examples of feedback loops, are pieces of feedback loops? So let's run that poll now. And remember, we really find it important that everybody votes in our poll. If you're not able to vote in the poll directly, you can put your answer into that questions box, please. We want to get everyone's opinions to make sure that we are hitting our second learning outcome, and want to make sure that the information is clear and you are ready to move on to the next piece. So we are at 50% voted. Thank you so much. And we have some answers in the questions box. Again, thank you for that as well. All right, so we are at 70%. I think we can have a few more votes here. Okay, and we're gonna give it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you everyone for participating in that poll. Let's check out and see where we are with our understanding of feedback loops. So 2% of you chose A or B, which is engage in back and forth exchanges with children and show persistence in encouraging children's understanding, which are aspects of feedback loops. But you don't want to forget what we just talked about with that pyramid, is asking those follow-up questions to continue those feedback loops. So while you're correct with A and B, the most correct answer is actually D, all of the above, which 95% of you have chosen. So we are really close to meeting our outcome of asking follow-up questions, maintaining back and forth exchanges to help children reach a deeper understanding of the content you're teaching. So those are our feedback loops. So thank you once again for your participation in that poll. Let's hide that poll. And let's look next at the prompting of the thought process. This is our third indicator or identifier of quality of feedback. It's called prompting thought process. We're asking the students to explain their thinking. We're questioning their responses and actions. So we can ask children to explain their thinking, why they thought or did something. So we're looking at this indicator as giving the children an opportunity to think out loud, so we can really hear their thinking process and understand what they think and why they think that. So an example of the prompting thought process could be as simple as introducing a new book during your story time by showing the children the cover of the book and asking, what do you think this story might be about? Asking them to look at the cover, identify clues, put those clues together to give you a hypothesis of what they think this story might be about. And then the teacher can really intentionally build on those responses right there. So you just don't want to say, yeah, that's a good idea. You want to build on those responses. So you ask them to explain why they think that way. So we're asking those follow-up questions again to dig a little deeper and providing information throughout their back and forth exchange to make sure that what they think and how they think that is actually, we understand that they have a clear understanding of what we are trying to teach them. So what does this look like? Well, we have a conversation right here to see what it looks like to ask children to explain their thinking. So this teacher asks some follow-up questions and provides the children with information as they arrive at the answer to his question together. So let's look at this together and look at this chart. So our first teacher-child exchange, where we see the effective feedback, is where we're asking them to arrive at the answer together or provide more information about how they're thinking. So you can see here in the teacher-child exchange, is it sunny or cloudy? And the child says sunny. You're right. It's ineffective feedback. It doesn't really let the child know or say anything more, and it doesn't expand the teacher's understanding of the child's concept of what sunny means to them. But effective feedback would be, how do you know? So they'd have to explain what it means for a day to be sunny. And then we also have a great example at the bottom of the chart here. That is, I built a tall, tall tower. We know our children love to build those towers. And I hear it very often in the classroom. Our favorite term, it even happens at my house, so I understand the struggle. And the ineffective feedback was great job, because it ends the conversation. There's no more information provided by the child, and we don't get to hear them explain their thinking. So then we want to really look for that effective feedback. So a way to be effective after the child says, I built a tall, tall tower, would be, show me how to build a tall tower like yours. So then you're engaging with the child, and they're going to show you their thinking by demonstrating how they built the tower and give you instructions so you can see their thought process and step by step. So when we look at all the effective feedback, it's when the teacher gives the child the opportunity to explain themselves. So we want to give the children to explain themselves. All these ineffective feedbacks really cut the children off and prevent any further conversation. So we want to dig deeper again. This quality feedback, all about digging deeper and to why they think the way they do. All right, so we are going to watch this excellent video that will talk about extending children's ideas. And we're going to look for some evidence of quality feedback, so prompting the thought process, getting the children to explain their thinking and ask questions about their actions. Or can you see any scaffolding? Does the teacher provide any hints or suggestions? And do we see any feedback loops, any of those back and forth exchanges to enhance the learning and understanding of the child? And do we see the child's thinking explained? So all in all, just take note, jog down a note or two of what you noticed the teacher did and how did the children respond to those behaviors of quality feedback that we notice. So let us share this video. And make sure your volume is turned up. Sometimes the volume gets turned down a little bit on the video, so just make sure your volume's turned up. All right. So that was a snapshot of extending children's ideas. So now we're going to take what we have talked about, quality of feedback, and what we observed as quality of feedback. Did you see the teacher prompting the children's thought process, getting them to explain their thinking? Did she scaffold them in any way? Did she have any persistent feedback loops or back and forth exchanges? Where did you notice where and how the teacher responded, how the children responded to the teacher based on what she said? So I know that's a lot to think about, so I'll give everyone some think time about that. Okay, and as we are utilizing our think time, we are going to, oh, excellent. We have some answers coming in right now. So let us read those to everyone so we can talk about it. So she helped them with the clothespin to put the paper on the cardboard. Yes, Kelly, you saw that scaffolding. And she gave them opportunity to extend their answers. Absolutely. She was really intensive on asking questions that would make the children extend their answers. She used a lot of how and why questions. She guided them to find solutions. Absolutely. Some more scaffolding. And she asked, how can we fix that? Where can we put this artwork? So she's asking those high, how and why questions, those where questions, all those important W questions. And then we have great video. Yes, it is a beautiful flow of communication and action. So much intentional teaching. So she was said that was fast. And yes, she was fast, she reassured. She helped them be aware of the space, and the teacher offers the opportunity to find answers. So those two answers together really complement each other. Yes, so she helps them even really recognize a problem and understand that problem-solving technique. And she asked a lot of open-ended questions. Yes, she's very intentional with those questions. And whenever they made a rule, she asked them specifically what they could, sorry, it's cut up a little bit, what they could do, so they could share their expectations. Absolutely. We're getting the children to explain their thinking again and share what they think and help them refocus on the topic of the conversation. Good observation. Now, you guys have so many wonderful answers that are filled with wonderful detail. She let them get to the answers and she gave them time to answer. Yes, I love that amount of time that she would give them. It wasn't like a rush to conversation. She was taking the time to really engage with this group of children and that center at this area. And she was nearby the children when the child was building the fence. She was nearby and she was right there when they were hanging the signs. So she was available to support them. And she asked, how can we fix it? Another great open-ended question, and giving them ideas to make that solution. And she showed patience and persistence, absolutely. And that's the key to those feedback loops, that patience and persistence, that going back and forth exchanges, especially at the beginning when she was, I wonder, can you see the problem here? How can we make it safe? What should we do? And it gets all the way to making a fence. So excellent, detailed examples, everyone who was able to participate in that conversation. Thank you so much. We're going to continue now and look at this prompting thought process through a new scenario, similar to what we did with Anishka. So let us get started. Okay, here we go. So we're going to identify the behavior markers of queries or questions, the responses or actions of the child. We're going to see where they ask the child to explain their thinking and where that's demonstrated in this example. So I'll read it, and then we will identify these behavior markers that we were talking about. So Miss Kelly asked children to identify objects as preparation for a guessing game. When she holds up the Lego figure in a blue uniform, Jonah says, "He's a pilot." Miss Kelly asks, "How do you know he's a pilot?" So what is she doing there? Is she asking the children to explain, ask the children to explain their thinking, or is she really querying or questioning the response or the action of that child when he responded, he's a pilot? I think this one's a little bit of a tricky one because I can see how you would how you could choose asking the child to explain thinking, because you have that how do you know question. But then also we can categorize this as, yes, Miss Dennis, I don't want to mispronounce your name, of course, the queries and responses. So we see that after his action of saying he's a pilot, that gives her the moment to question his response in action. So that's why it's a little bit more of that behavior marker. And then when we continue, Jonah says, because he has an airplane on his hat, Miss Kelly asks, why would a pilot have an airplane on his hat? So that's another one of those markers. So is it queries to responses and actions, or ask children to explain thinking? Because at the end, Jonah says pilots fly airplanes. So what does Jonah, how does Miss Kelly, what does she do to figure out what Jonah knows about these airplanes? Where is that explaining children's thinking demonstrated? Okay, let's take a look. Like I said, this one's a little tricky, and I feel that there's kind of a, you can kind of have a defense on either one. But when we get really specific, we can see that the queries or questions, responses, and actions of the child is the Miss Kelly asks, how do you know he's a pilot? But that also does sound like a follow-up question to me. And then Jonah says, because he has an airplane on his hat. So Miss Kelly goes further and asks, why would a pilot have an airplane on his hat? So that's even a more detailed, specific question. And she's asking him to explain his thinking. So why does he think an airplane on his hat makes that a pilot? So she gets the answer because Jonah then says, after she asks the students to explain his thinking, that pilots fly airplanes. So he put the airplane, he connected it to the hat, which connected it to the Lego figure, which connected it to the occupation of a pilot. So there was a lot happening in that simple exchange. And thank you everyone for answering in the chat box. There's a lot of great, she gave time for him to explain himself, absolutely very important. Help him and give him moments to extend his answer, explain his thinking. We saw a lot of explaining of the thinking. I agree, there felt like there was a lot of explaining of his thinking as well. And then as an invitation to critical thinking, yes, we want to hear queries and those actions too. And the action was him saying he's a pilot. So it's time for another poll. So all about prompting thought process. So let's get a temperature read on this next question. So what do you think? Prompting thought processes occur when the teacher intentionally builds on the children's responses. So questions the children's responses, asks the children to explain their thinking, or provides information throughout their back and forth exchange? Or is it all of the above? So what do you think? Is she providing specific, how is she providing specific information about why a child's response is correct or incorrect? Let's take this poll. It's launching now. Don't forget, we want everyone's participation. So prompting thought processes occur when the teacher intentionally builds on the children's responses, is asking children to explain their thinking, or is providing information throughout back and forth exchanges, or is it all of the above? Is that where we're seeing it? Oh, Juliet, I like that. It's a lot. There's a lot of information that we're covering tonight. So let's take us a moment to think about what answer fits best. So we are at 70%. So please continue to answer in the poll. Okay, and now it's time to close that poll up and share. And we see that 8% of you said asking children to explain their thinking. Yes, we did really focus on that area of prompting thought process. But most of you went with all of the above and recognize that all three of these really incorporate into prompting thought processes. So we want to intentionally build on the children's responses, such as like when the teacher builds on, he's a pilot. She could have just said yes, but she built on it. And asking children to explain their thinking is ever so important to get their understanding of how they think and why they think the way they do, and providing information throughout those back and forth exchanges. And that's what we're talking about. We're seeing a lot of back and forth exchanges, providing information to get deep in further understandings. So I believe we are on track, and I can see that the majority of us really, now that we've reviewed it, can understand that providing specific information about why a child's response is correct or incorrect can be prompting the thought process. And that's important to know. We want to help them, give them information about their responses, not just tell them yes or no. So the answer, of course, again, was all of the above. So thank you everyone for your participation. I know it is late and there is a lot of information, but we're gonna keep on going through, and we're going to providing information, our fourth area in quality of feedback. So providing information is really where we're expanding, we're clarifying what the children say, and we're giving specific feedback. So explaining things when children indicate that they are confused. We can add new information when the children indicate they have a basic understanding. I really like this image here. It reminds me of an activity that my child was doing in her classroom, and they're all looking at a globe explaining where they lived. And some children explained that they lived, and someone said San Juan, and then someone said Florida, and then someone said the town that the preschool was in. So you could see that all the children had different levels of understanding of where they lived. So the teacher could provide information to each child specifically to give more clarification, expand on their answer. So for the child who said San Juan, needs some more clarification on where they live by giving them some specific feedback. And then the child who says Florida, we can expand on that, and we can say, where in Florida do you live? And then we can give specific feedback for the child who answers the correct city of where he lives and say, yes, that is the city that you live in. Tell me about what's in your city, to even give more opportunity for conversation to continue. So let us see what this providing information looks like, because it's our fourth indicator, and we really want to make sure we're providing information for the efforts to expand on the children's understanding or action by providing the additional information or clarifying their response. So we're going to look at how it looks now in our upcoming slides. So here is examples of expansion, clarification, and specific feedback. So here we have expansion. The child says it's hot, and then the teacher says the sun is shining on the slide today, making it hot when you touch it. So we see how that additional information is provided by the teacher, and the teacher expands on what the child already knows. So what does she know? She knows the child knows that that feels hot, but doesn't necessarily know why it feels hot. So she expands and provides information to give the child a further understanding of why that slide is hot at that time. So that's a great example of expansion. And then now we look at clarification. So the teacher asks the child, did you ride the yellow bus? And the child just says, a big bus? So then the teacher says, the bus you rode is big and yellow. Big is the size, yellow is the color. So the teacher really, again, is providing additional information to help clarify the child's thoughts and more complete sentence structure and more clarity. So then we get the clarification. And then finally, when we look at specific feedback, we hear the child say, I built a great big castle. And the teacher responds, you worked very hard and took your time stacking the blocks for your castle. Great job. So I know there's a great job there, but there's so much specific information before the great job. The great job does not take away from the specific feedback given to the child, because they understand what the great job was, because the teacher was detailed in that response and saying they did a great job working hard and taking their time as they stacked the blocks. So we know what we did and why we did it. So now we're going to all participate and find the behavior markers, or those examples of specific feedback, clarification, and expansion demonstrated in this example. So I separated a little bit because as we continue, it gets a little trickier. So let's see if we can identify all these together. So Susie looks at the decaying pumpkin and says, there's fuzzy black hair growing on the pumpkin. The teacher says, yes, something is growing on the pumpkin. That is one behavior marker. That fuzzy black stuff is mold growing on it. That's another behavior marker. And then the pumpkin was sitting on the wet ground and began to rot, and then grew mold. So we can see here, and I know that says grow, but let's read grew. Let's look at the first blue sentence here. The teacher says, yes, something is growing on the pumpkin. So is she giving specific feedback? Is she clarifying? Is she explaining, giving expansion? What do we believe that teacher is doing? Or is she just providing specific information to the child? I'll give everyone some think time on that. So her first response, after the child says there's fuzzy black hair growing on this pumpkin, the teacher says, yes, there is something growing on that pumpkin. So what do we think? Is that specific feedback or expansion? Okay, we have some clarifying answers and we have some specific feedback, clarification. All right, clarification. Let's continue. So we're going to see that the teacher says, yes, something is growing on the pumpkin. So what she's doing there is providing specific feedback that, yes, she's reinforcing what the child said, that there is fuzzy black hair growing on the pumpkin. So she is giving specific feedback saying, yes, there is something growing on the pumpkin. And then what are we doing next when she says that fuzzy black stuff is mold growing on it? Is she giving a clarification or an expansion? Because the next sentence she says is the pumpkin was sitting on the wet ground and began to rot, then grow mold. So which one is more of an expansion question, statement, and which one's more of clarification? All right, and then we can see, let's see it together. And here we can see where we provided all this information. So Susie looks at the decaying pumpkin and we say, yes, there's something growing on that pumpkin. That's that specific feedback. And that fuzzy black stuff is mold. That's that clarification on what that fuzzy black stuff is. And the pumpkin was sitting on the ground and was wet. And that's the explanation of why there is mold. So thank you for your feedback on that last example of providing information. That's okay if you got them all wrong, mixing them up. It's not easy. And we do put these webinars back on our website so you can review this information. This information is challenging. And I can tell you the first time I was introduced to a scenario similar to this, I definitely did not get it on my first try. So let's review and see if this next statement is true or false. Providing information is the effort to expand on a child's understanding or action. So do we think that is true or false? So let's pop that in and see if we're hitting our next learning outcome. All right, let's see where we all are on our poll. Excellent. We are going to close that and share. Thank you for putting it into the chat box if you're not able to answer in the poll. And 97% of you are on target and recognize that with providing feedback, we're expanding on the child's response or actions to provide additional information or clarification. We're providing information by expanding on what the child says, clarifying exactly what the child is talking about. So that is what we're doing when we are providing information. All right, we got some truths coming in here also in the chat box. Lovely, perfect. That's what we want to see. And it's okay if you got that false because it's a challenging concept. But once again, when you provide information, it's the effort to expand on a child's understanding or action. It's not about conversation. It's about to expand on what their child is understanding or what they're doing to get further to get into a deeper understanding or a deeper level of learning. So we're going to close this poll up and wrap things up. So let us take a look at our next and last area, which is encouragement and affirmation. So with encouragement and affirmation, it's recognition, reinforcement, and student persistence. So we want to encourage children, specifically praising their efforts so they will keep trying to succeed at challenging tasks. So we are acknowledging the children's efforts and we're encouraging that persistence or pushing the child to try a new strategy. So what we're going to do next is talk about this encouragement and affirmation. Get rid of good job because it is not enough. And we want to put in some strategies to be more specific with our feedback. So we are more intentional with our feedback and the children understand what we are recognizing and what efforts we are encouraging. So to be intentional with your feedback does take time and practice, but you can start with phrases such as, I like the way you are X, Y, and Z. I see the way that you are using all the different colors. Or I noticed how you built the tower with the square and rectangle blocks. So you're noticing their efforts and recognition, you're seeing their accomplishments, and you're giving them specific praise about, I like the way that you're putting that box on the shelf, so they really understand. And then to consider while we're thinking about our encouragement and affirmation is we want to be intentional, specific, highlight the particular activity or behavior. So that is all very important while we are talking about being intentional with our feedback, because we really want to be more meaningful so the children get them that individualized feedback to get them to persist and continue on with their efforts. So we have reached our last poll of the day, and we want to ask you, what is an example of effective encouragement and affirmation? So let's see here. The teacher point out recognizing the child's specific efforts, or the teacher says, good job. So what do we want to hear in the classroom? Here we go. Okay, and we're going to launch that poll now. Okay, let's close and see where we are. And let's share. Oh no, teacher said good job, 10%. We're gonna have to go back and watch the video because we wanna make sure that we are being specific and point out what they are doing, because good job is not enough. For example, the child can be very abstract in their thinking. So they might not know what the good job is for. Is it a good job that they're sitting in their chair like they're expected to do? Is it a good job that they handed a paper to a friend? What is that good job? Or is it a good job that they're wearing a hat today? So we want to really make sure that we are giving effective encouragement and affirmation and pointing out those specific efforts. So really, good job is not enough. So try to incorporate some other ways of recognizing the children's efforts to get them to persist. Okay, so let's hide this final poll. And we're going to complete the picture here. And we want to remember that when giving feedback, we're going to have increased understanding. We increase the effort. We're going to give children opportunities to persist, get the children to try new strategies, and get the children to return to the same problem later. So those are all ways that we can really get the primary concern when giving feedback. Those are all the reasons why we give this great feedback. So let's connect the dot blocks, because there was a lot of information today. So we really want to go back to understanding that we want to recognize how to pay attention to the children's level of understanding and build on it. That's scaffolding. And then we're going to think about and ask all those important follow-up questions, maintaining those back and forth exchanges to help reach a deeper understanding, those feedback loops. And then we want to provide that specific information about why the child's response is correct or incorrect, so prompting the thought process. And expand on the child's answers or actions to provide additional information or clarification by providing information. And finally, we're going to recognize the children for their efforts, encouraging them to persist in their thinking or participation by giving them specific encouragement and affirmation. So please don't forget to download your handouts right here as the handouts triangle. You just click on the name of that and it will open up into your computer to save. And here are references from this evening. If you like, you can take a picture of those. Those are all great resources to learn more on this topic. And then, of course, we want to remind you about our certificates. So upon completion of this training, a post-test and a training evaluation survey will launch in your LMS account within about 20 minutes. So you can scan the QR code now with the camera on your phone to get quick access to that account. And we just want to say thank you very much. And please contact us. It was our pleasure to be here with you. So we want to stay connected with you by social media and through our email. So connect with us in any way you want. So we have our Facebook, our Instagram, and even our Twitter accounts. So join us, follow us, participate in our conversations, and we hope to see you at further trainings. And if you have any need for more clarification, you can contact us at our emails below. And Ms. Agnieszka, I will let you have our final words before we say goodbye to everyone.
Yes, thank you so much for participating so late at night. Obviously, you are interested in enhancing, giving this feedback to your children in your classroom. So we hope you learned something. It was our pleasure to present it for you tonight. Use those strategies, those handouts, print those open-ended questions, post them in each learning centers in your classroom. So when you go there around the classroom, you see them and you remember to ask those questions. So we hope you use all those strategies and the resources we gave you. Thank you again so much tonight for participation and for chatting with us. And we see you soon. Thank you, Steph.
Okay. Thank you, Agnes. I'm going to show that QR code one more time as a request. And keep in mind, you're not going to see your certificate until you do your post-test and your training evaluation survey. So you need to do all of that first, and that's not going to come up until about 20 minutes. So when you go to your account on the LMS with this QR code and you sign in, you're going to go to your registrations, and in about 20 minutes, you're going to see your post-test appear. Then you're going to go to registrations again, then fill out that training evaluation survey, hit that registrations one last time, and then you will receive your certificate. So thank you, everyone, and have a great night. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Stephanie, I also wanted to tell them that they are
Yes.
also going to be receiving an email as well. So if you didn't scan the QR code, that is okay. Once Stephanie marks you as attended, you will be receiving an email from the LMS, and it's going to have that link for you to be able to access your post-test and then your training evaluation, and then you'll get your certificate in that training.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany, for that clarification. So look out for that email, everyone, and that will give you the go ahead to fill in those documents. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. And we, again, appreciate your attendance and your participation.
Good night.